Ian Paisley Jr., the general theory at the moment is that if Martin McGuinness doesn't get agreement from the DUP on policing and justice before Christmas, that he will resign. Is that what do you think is in the offing?
Well, I actually haven't heard him say that. I don't think he has said that. Well, I agree with Reg on this point. People need to get off the emotional roller coaster and stop treating the people out there to this emotional scene of one day there's a crisis, next day there mightn't be. It's like a little boy keeps crying wolf. Sooner or later the wolf comes along and no one takes him seriously. Now, we're in a very difficult political situation, of that there's no doubt. We're in a coalition of 4 parties with various views. And running a coalition when you want to be in a coalition is one thing. Running a coalition when there's difficult issues and difficult parties in it is completely different. And at least we're in a coalition, at least we're doing the things of politics, which is difficult. And I said to one of your other commentators, if it was easy, even she would do it. And I think the reality is, this is difficult.
I saw your reference to...
If Martin McGuinness was to resign in January, should there be an immediate election?
Well, there's a choice. The Secretary of State has to call an election, but he has discretion as to when he calls it. Now, I suppose some people might feel that they could provoke an election in order to provoke a negotiation. Now, I'm sure the Sinn Fein must be tempted because the SDLP are in the middle of a leadership election at the moment, so it's a very good time for them. And I can understand that they could be tempted in that way. But at the end of the day, while there may be changes in terms of the strengths of each individual party, you come back to the same table, only the porridge is colder than when you left it. So I don't think that that actually achieves an awful lot unless one particular party feels that it's in its own interest.
Though, could I add this? I think, isn't it interesting that at this point it's not Unionists who are walking away? Collectively, Unionists are in a far stronger position. Collectively, Unionists aren't the ones throwing the rattle out. Collectively, Unionists are standing on a position that they want this place to work. They wanted to go forward.
Sinn Fein said you're forcing them out by not treating them with equality.
That the pan-nationalist front that we feared for so long appears to be in tatters. One side of it is leaderless and is in a leadership battle. The other side of it is threatening to walk away. And I think Unionists should reflect on the position that they're in now, that unlike in previous days where Unionists' hand was forced and they had to leave the table and come back, you're absolutely right, to more difficult situations and more difficult hurdles to ultimately address. At the end of the day, today Unionism, I believe, is in a far stronger position.
But you haven't answered the question. Would you welcome an early Assembly election? People obviously think you're going to face a difficult Westminster election.
I did answer the question, but I didn't answer the question you wanted.
But well, no, but a lot of people think the DUP don't want an election simply because they're scared, and you've heard it before with the TUV.
Well, you know, let's face it, if there's an election, we fight the election, we fight the elections to win. The fact of the matter is, and again, I'm not going to tell you how to do your job because you wouldn't dare tell me how to do mine, but talking around this issue and saying there's going to be a crisis, there's going to be a resignation, I honestly think getting into that plays to the emotional roller coaster that I've spoken about, and really is, honestly, is a foolish position to be in. Northern Ireland is unstable enough at times. We're trying our best, and we have differences, but we're trying our best to make this wee place work and work effectively. The charge is that
you're not. The sense is what you're doing is your best for the narrow interests of the DUP that ultimately could be self-defeating, because if you don't give something to your enemies, i.e. Sinn Féin, the whole thing comes down.
Between September and now, we have managed to negotiate a far better financial package on policing and justice than would have been the case. That's not to the narrow interest of the DUP, that's to everyone's interest out there to make sure that if and when policing and justice is devolved, there is in place a financial package that actually makes it work effectively. I think that's sensible, sure, steady footwork. And I think that's what people expect of the politician.
Martina, party there.
This is difficult. Everyone, if this wasn't so difficult, everyone would do it. The fact of the matter is, it is difficult. That's why Reg is difficult, we've got difficulties. The point of the matter is, it doesn't help when one of the parties in the coalition decides that they're going to throw a hissy fit because they haven't got their own thing. And they have to argue their position, and Sinn Féin will have to recognise that they have to get agreement if they want their position to be recognised. At the moment, they're nowhere near getting agreement to their position. What I think is possible is that we get an agreement on a shared position, and that's the ideal position to try and get us to, and that's what we're working towards.
Well, do you see any merit in what Reg Empey's talking about, bringing the parties together, getting everyone involved to try and sort this out?
Well, I'm under the impression that there has been discussions at leadership level, and I think that's the level it has to be at. I mean, Reg doesn't want to negotiate with me on on the airways. I think the appropriate people is the First Minister should be talking to Reg, and I understand is talking to Reg, and indeed talking to others, and that's the level that this should be at, and the party leaders will then lead by example on these issues, and I think that that's only fair. But let's calm it down. Let's get off the emotional roller coaster, and let's stop pretending to the people out there there is a crisis when there isn't one, or vice versa. We've got to make sure that the people are taken seriously. And I think, yes, there's been difficulties in this term, but there's been difficulties in the Westminster term. There's been difficulties in the other terms of the various parliaments on these islands. And I think that the important thing is that we recognise that the nature of politics is that there's difficulties, and we try to resolve those difficulties. And there have been some good work done this term. I mean, most of the committees, DFP, my committee on agriculture, we brought in the banks. We dealt with issues with the banks, and we managed to get the banks into some softer positions with regards to some of their clients, which previously wasn't the case. Indeed, at the beginning of the term, some commentators were telling us the banks wouldn't be doing or bowing to us. Well, I'm glad that the banks were at least listening to us.